Well, no, it's not something to be judged because everything just is. It's to be pointed out that the sense of reality that most people have because of the program is a fraction of what it's possible to understand, what it's possible to tap into to give you far greater creative power. I mean, here we are, Kevin, infinite awareness, having an experience, and you see people going through their lives, living at almost infinitesimal fraction of their infinite potential because they've been persuaded they're little me and they have no power. And it's not done, as a joke. It's done because there is a force at work that wishes to entrap humanity, incarnate awareness, in a fake reality, in a fake sense of self, to turn it into basically a slave race to that force, and to turn it into a energy source for that force. Because the force I'm talking about feeds off low vibrational human emotional energy, all based around the foundation state of fear. And as I point out in Phantom Self, I suggest that this force that is ultimately behind human control is not something that even takes form, though it can, just as our awareness can take form, it can take form. But its base state is what we call fear. It was when this, you can not just symbolize it, you can be very close to the truth, I think, when you consider it in the form of something like a computer virus, which, what does a computer virus do? It takes over something that already exists and it distorts it and it feeds off it. A computer virus gets its power from the computer. It's not created the computer, it's not created the reality, but it is piggybacking it, and the more the virus gets hold, the more it takes over the way the computer operates. And I would suggest this is happening not just collectively within this quantum computer universe that I suggest it is, it's also happening within the biological computer systems that we call the body. And I think there's a very good chance that all these themes we hear from various sources from the past that talk about being born with original sin or being born with something that's not good, relates to this virus, which is running through the body. And when it gets total control of the person's perception, we have a name for that. We call them psychopaths, who have no empathy, they have no compassion, and appropriately, these are the character traits of the people that we call the elite bloodlines.
So, if we go beyond five senses and look into the infinite awareness that lies within and take our power back in a sense, then the world could become a much happier, lovable place in a sense, and we could actually find that we've got self-love for ourselves, we've got self-love for each other, and that there is a oneness between us all. What we do to another, we wouldn't want done to ourselves in a sense, and the world would become a lot more, it would become the utopia that we've always looked for. I suppose this is where it may head towards with your work, if we were to look into this direction. But do you think that potentially the Phantom Self is only in that state because when we incarnate here as a soul, we are erased about our true awareness of who we are, and we're here to remember it through a different way forward, so that we're not supposed to know what our true potential is. We're supposed to relearn it, to relearn what love is, to relearn what oneness is, because that we've chosen to come here in a sense with a blank canvas to have an earthly experience. How does that fit into your work?
Well, I've heard this many times over the years, and the more that I study this, and the more that I observe, and the more that I, conclude, I don't buy that. You mentioned there about how we could get to some kind of utopian world. I think we were already there. I think that this reality, if you want to talk in terms of time, going way back, beyond known human history, though the ancients talked about it, in terms of a golden age. And I think it was a time when the human experience could be likened to the Avatar movie in many ways, where you had a situation where humans were, although in form, in a very much less dense state, a much higher frequency state, therefore less dense, less, quote, solid, and the energetic environment was so much more powerful that people got their sustenance, and the animal kingdom and everything got their sustenance from that field. And thus there was no eating of solid food, if you like. And thus without that, if you take that out of it, then the law of the wild, people say, how can a loving God create a world that where there's so much violence and everything lives because something else dies? And you see endless, constant nature films with one animal ripping another animal apart and all that stuff. Where did that come from? Well, my suggestion is when this hijack took place, when this self-aware, inverted, distorted, computer-like virus started to get a grip of this reality. One of the consequences was we went further and further into density because the frequency fell, and the ability, because of that density and the energy environment in general, we were no longer able to feed and be sustained energetically and nourished from the energetic field. There was a gap to be filled, and it's been filled by eating energy in the form of what we call food. And once you create a situation where one survives because one doesn't, you create this every person for himself, every lion for itself, every animal for itself structure